job doing that.
Now, ironically, Aziz's threat against Kuwait comes amid rising anti-American sentiment in Kuwait. Why is this going on? For more, we're joined now by journalist Imran Anwar, who's been here before. Imran, now, Kuwait actually would not exist if it were not for the U.S. It would be a part of Iraq. What's their beef all about?
I think the problem is that the Kuwaitis seem to forget that we basically saved them back in 1991. But I think their relationship with the Iraqis goes back a little further back than that, especially when the Iran-Iraq war was going on. Even at that time,
this was in the early 1980s.
Exactly. Even at that time, David, the Kuwaiti people and a lot of the Arab states there tended to support Saddam Hussein and Iraq against Iran at that time. So a little bit of that relationship still exists.
But some people say that the leadership in Kuwait now has been taken over by these fundamentalist Muslims, Muslim fascists, to put it quite simply. Is that true?
Not quite, because these are still unelected people. They are sheikhs. They basically want to stay in power.
Yeah, but there are power struggles everywhere, whether it's a democracy or not.
Absolutely. It's a very tribal structure there. So these people don't really care about democracy. They don't really care about world issues. But what they do seem to forget is in 1991, it was the United States that came in and saved their butts, if I can say that on TV.
Sure you can.
And basically that's what happened, and they seem to forget that. And the fact that there are direct threats being made against that same country again by the same Saddam Hussein that some of the people on the streets of Kuwait are defending is beyond reason.
When you have a dictatorship amidst all this tribal rivalry and everything, it comes down to power. Saddam understands it. He knows it comes down to power. Osama bin Laden, he says, you know, my people will back the strongest horse. So if we win this battle, and if we show that Saddam doesn't have the power, it's us, because he's been playing around with us for 10 years. It looks like, from their eyes, he does have the power. Once we take out Saddam, will all this change?
Absolutely. What we have to make sure is that not only do we take out the evil individual, Saddam and his henchmen, because that's where the problem lies in Iraq, but we have to make sure that we make a concerted effort in the rest of the Middle East, especially in some of our ally countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other Muslim countries like Egypt, etc., to force their leadership to open the doors to democracy so that the people actually feel that they have a future, that they have a say in what is happening in their future. If that doesn't happen, those people, most people in Muslim countries like Pakistan, Kuwait, etc., tend to then feel their future is not in their control, and that makes them more apt to listen to people like Osama bin Laden if he's alive, or his followers.
But thousands of years, you know, there have been these tribal rivalries going around in the Middle East, and there's only one democracy that I know of in the Middle East, and that's Israel. And they have a lot of Palestinians would say that's not a democracy. So how do you do it? How do you formulate a democracy in a region where it's unfamiliar?
As a friend of mine used to say, that you cannot solve world hunger in one day, but what you can do is set them on one path. Saudi Arabia being a good example. In the past, when
wait a minute, Saudi Arabia is a good example?
Is a good example of the problem.
Oh, okay.
In the past, when the intelligentsia or the intellectuals of Saudi Arabia approached the kingdoms, the rulers, and said, we want some democracy, they were treated very harshly. In the last few weeks and months, they have approached the kingdom again to open the doors to democracy, and they haven't been hammered down or thrown into jail or disappeared. So at least if we can encourage our allies in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc., and Egypt and Pakistan to follow the same example, to try to open the door to democracy so that the masses, the 1 billion Muslims out there who right now feel that America is waging a war against Muslims. It's not. They're trying to get Saddam, but they think it's Muslims.
Imran, we got to go, but 10 seconds. After the war, will there be less or more democracy in the Middle East?
If we don't play our cards right, it will be the same old for the next 1,000 years. So we have to be very firm about pursuing democracy.
Imran Anwar, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Bridge?
All right, Dave, straight ahead.